All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going exploring the world of servitors,
Ooh,
a
servitors.
magical practice.
Okay.
And we've got a transcript from a YouTube video all about this. And I think even if you're not into the whole magic thing,
Right.
this is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting how this idea of magical servants, like servitors, appears in so many different traditions and so many different forms.
Yeah,
It really speaks to this kind of fundamental human desire to harness these unseen forces
right.
to kind of achieve our goals.
So let's start with what a servitor is and maybe more importantly, what it isn't.
Yeah,
The video really stresses that a servitor is not
right.
like some kind of being
Mm-hmm.
with its own mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's something totally different. Apparently, that would be called a tulpa,
Right.
which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that distinction is key.
So controversial, actually, that the video creator had to take down the video about it.
Oh, wow.
But a servitor is purely task-oriented.
Right. It's like, it's not a being, it's like a program.
Yeah.
It's like a focused program to do a specific job.
Which, to me, makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have this perfectly obedient, magical assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and they give some cool examples in the video, helping you find a job, alerting you to if someone is attracted to you, even acting as a guard dog for your property.
I find those examples particularly interesting because they can be tied back to
Oh.
like psychological principles as well, right? So the job-seeking servitor, that could be seen as a way of kind of like priming your subconscious
Okay.
to notice opportunities you might otherwise miss.
Okay.
The attraction alerting servitor, that could be related to like self-fulfilling prophecies, you know?
Right, right.
If you believe you're attractive, you project more confidence, and then that can in turn attract others.
Yeah, it's almost like we're creating this mental program
Yeah.
to influence our reality, which brings up the big question,
Mm-hmm.
where do these servitors actually exist?
Right.
The source presents two main viewpoints. One, that they're purely mental
Okay.
constructs, like thought forms that we project outward,
Okay.
and the other suggests they might be external entities
Oh,
that we draw to us
wow.
through our intention.
This ties into some pretty like profound philosophical questions
Yeah,
about the nature of consciousness and reality it have.
totally.
Does our intention actually shape reality, or are we tapping into something that already exists?
Right.
It's a debate.
So let's say we want to experiment with creating a servitor.
Okay.
It's not some quick spell. It's not
Right.
an incantation. It's a process.
It's a process, yeah. And I think that that careful and deliberate process is actually what makes it so effective.
Mm.
It's that
Really for the learner, the
Yeah.
person that wants to...
Yeah, it forces you to like really define your intention and focus your energy.
Yeah, so let's walk through the key elements of servitor creation as outlined in the source.
Okay.
First up, purpose.
Mhm.
You have to be crystal clear about what you want this servitor to do.
Right. It can't be vague. It can't be wishy-washy.
No vague wishes, no half-baked ideas allowed.
Think of it like a detailed job description
Yeah.
for your magical assistant.
Yeah.
What specific actions, what outcomes do you want to achieve?
Then there are the powers.
Mm-hmm.
What skills, what abilities does your servitor need to actually accomplish its task?
Exactly. So think about the resources, the capabilities necessary for achieving that intended outcome.
And then my personal favorite, the appearance.
Okay.
This is where you can let your imagination run wild.
Right.
Swirling cloud, hybrid animal, a single blade of grass, they mention it all.
I think while it can be tempting to really go all out with the visuals,
Right.
the source does also caution against getting too caught up in the aesthetics.
Okay.
It's really about choosing an appearance that resonates with you.
Okay, so function over fashion,
Yeah,
even in the magical realm.
exactly.
So we got the purpose, the powers, the look. What's next?
Next is giving your servitor a name,
Oh.
but not just any name,
Right.
something foreign, abstract, like a secret code almost.
Ooh,
This adds a layer of mystique and helps distinguish it from everyday thoughts.
I like that.
Yeah.
It makes it feel extra magical.
Yeah,
And speaking of summoning that magic,
right.
we need an activation code.
Yes.
They describe this as a sort of secret handshake
Uh-huh.
to call forth your servitor. Could be words, gestures, holding a specific object, whatever resonates with you.
Think of it like a trigger, a specific set of stimuli that activates the servitor and focuses its attention on that task.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar to how athletes use mental imagery to improve their performance. You're essentially programming your subconscious mind
Yeah,
to respond to this cue.
we're building quite the elaborate system
It
here.
is a process, right?
This next part is really fascinating to me. Sustenance.
Oh, okay.
How do you keep a magical being fed? They give some interesting options in the video, incense offerings,
Okay.
acts of service that support the servitor's goal, even feeding off the positive results it brings you.
It's interesting how they frame this as feeding the servitor,
Yeah.
implying that there's a reciprocal relationship, almost an energy exchange,
Right?
between you and your creation.
Okay.
So you provide sustenance,
Yeah.
and in return, the servitor carries out your will.
Servitors also need a place to call home.
Okay.
This could be a physical object, a box, a bottle, or a location within your own mind.
Uh-huh.
The creator of this video even mentions using Gothic doll houses.
Oh, wow.
Talk about creative visualization.
Yeah, the location acts as a focal point for the servitor's energy.
Okay.
A place where it can be concentrated and accessed.
All right, we're getting pretty deep into this servitor creation process.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a question.
Yeah.
What happens when the job is done? Do we just let these magical beings roam free?
Not exactly.
Okay.
The source really stresses the importance of having a way to control and eventually retire a servitor.
Okay.
And that's where the concept of a fatal flaw comes in.
A fatal flaw.
Yes.
That sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it?
I know, it does sound a bit dramatic, but really what it's about is ensuring that you retain control over the servitor,
Mm-hmm.
that you can deactivate it safely when necessary,
Okay.
safeguard against unintended consequences.
Okay, so what kind of fatal flaw are we talking about here?
So they recommend something complex
Okay.
and difficult to trigger accidentally.
Okay.
So think a specific position,
Right.
holding a certain object, and chanting a specific phrase,
Wow.
all at the same time.
Okay, some serious magical security.
Yes.
This idea of ending a servitor still feels a bit heavy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like, are we killing it off?
Not necessarily. Remember, these are essentially extensions of our own minds.
Okay.
So retiring a servitor could be seen as reabsorbing that energy back into yourself.
Okay.
Like giving those mental programs a well-deserved break.
All right, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
So we've got our blueprint all laid out, complete with a safety switch.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually bring this thing to life?
That is where the magic of sigils comes in.
Okay.
A sigil is a visual representation of the servitor and its purpose, and it acts as a conduit to focus your intention
Okay.
and energy during that activation process.
Now, if our listeners aren't familiar with sigils,
Right.
don't worry. We did another deep dive all about those magical symbols.
Yeah.
But for now, just think of them as like powerful visual triggers.
Yeah, and the source creator usually makes theirs using the letters of the servitor's name.
Okay.
But there are tons of methods out there.
Hmm.
The key is to choose a technique that resonates with you.
All right, so we've got our sigil. What's next? So we just stare at it and hope for the best.
Not quite.
Okay.
Activation involves getting yourself into an altered state of consciousness.
Okay.
So like through medication or trance
Uh-huh.
while focusing intently on the sigil.
Okay.
It's like flipping the on switch for your magical creation.
Sounds intense.
It can be.
But I guess it makes sense. You really need to channel that energy.
Yeah, and they do warn you
Okay.
that you're not going to see these immediate dramatic results.
Okay.
It's more like planting a seed.
Right.
It takes time and nurturing for it to grow and bear fruit.
So no instant magical gratification.
No.
Darn. But I guess that's part of the magic, right? The
Yeah.
anticipation, the gradual unfolding of events.
Yeah, patience is key when working with these subtle energies.
Okay.
And speaking of patience, we'll continue this deep dive in part 2,
Yes.
where we'll explore how to maintain a servitor,
Okay.
look for signs that it's working,
Mm-hmm.
and even address what to do if things aren't going as planned.
Stay tuned, folks. The world of servitors is just getting started.
Picking up where we left off, the source creator actually dives into their personal approach to working with servitors.
Okay.
And it's really fascinating because it kind of departs from the more structured method that we just outlined.
Okay, I love these behind-the-scenes glimpses.
Yeah.
Like peeking into the magician's workshop
Yeah, totally.
and seeing how the real magic happens.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that this practitioner utilizes the astral realm for their servitor work.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't fluent in magical jargon,
Right.
what exactly is the astral realm?
Think of it like lucid dreaming, where you're conscious and aware within a dreamscape.
Okay.
In many esoteric traditions, the astral realm is seen as this plane of existence
Mm-hmm.
beyond the physical, and it's often accessed through practices like meditation or trance.
So they're basically creating and managing their servitors in this mental landscape.
Yeah, it's like a non-physical dimension where consciousness can interact with
Wow.
various energies and entities.
That's incredible.
It is.
So what's that look like? I mean, what's going on in this astral realm?
So they describe this inner temple
Okay.
with a door leading to this world that they call Wonderland.
Okay.
And it's within this Wonderland that their servitor workshop exists.
Okay, so I'm picturing like this fantastical space straight out of Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah.
but with like magical tools and servitors like buzzing around.
They do emphasize that this is a highly personalized space,
Okay.
shaped by their own unique experiences and visualization.
Yeah.
But within this workshop, they have this very organized system for keeping track of their servitors. Sigils posted on bulletin boards, names clearly displayed.
So even magical beings need a bit of structure, I guess.
Apparently so.
How do they actually interact with their servitors in this astral workshop? Is it like, having a meeting in a boardroom?
It's more about visualization, almost like mental sculpting.
Okay.
They can adjust their servitor's appearance, reassign tasks, and even spend time strengthening that connection.
So it's very hands-on, interactive.
Very much so.
You're not just setting an intention and hoping for the best.
Right.
You're really actively shaping and guiding these servitors.
Yeah, and I think this method might resonate with people who are very comfortable with visualization.
Right.
Working with these subtle energies.
We talked about in the last part, reassigning servitors once they've completed a task.
Yeah.
Is that something that they do in their astral workshop?
They do.
Okay.
They have a really interesting perspective on it.
Okay.
If a servitor has been particularly effective, they'll actually go in and kind of rewire it, so to speak,
Okay.
and assign it a new task.
Oh, so it's like giving it a promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
And a new project.
What about the ones that don't quite meet expectations? Do they get, fired?
Those are typically retired,
Right.
sent off to their well-deserved rest.
Right.
The source creator seems to view it as this kind of natural cycle,
Yeah.
acknowledging that some servitors might be more effective than others.
Makes sense. Not every magical collaboration is going to be a home run, right?
Exactly.
It's good to know they're not just, abandoned.
Yeah.
They get, a graceful exit.
Exactly. And it brings up an interesting point about the potential applications of these ideas beyond magic.
Right.
Like this whole concept of an astral workshop and mental sculpting could be a really powerful tool for personal growth and self-improvement.
Totally. I'm thinking about, athletes visualizing their performance.
Yeah.
Or entrepreneurs crafting a mental image of their, ideal business.
It's all about harnessing the power of our minds to shape our reality.
Let's do a quick recap for the learner and all of us.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways so far?
So we've learned that servitors are these magical constructs,
Right.
essentially extensions of our own intention and will,
Yeah.
designed to carry out very specific tasks.
Magical assistants, not magical buddies.
Exactly.
We explored the process of creating a servitor, which involves clearly defining its purpose, its powers, its appearance, even its sustenance.
And it's housing, and don't forget that important fatal flaw.
Right. Safety first, even in magic.
Absolutely.
And then we got a really fascinating glimpse into a more personalized approach
Yeah.
using this astral realm and this amazing concept of a servitor workshop.
Yeah, it's fascinating how this one practitioner has really customized their practice.
This has all been incredibly fascinating, but how do we know if it's actually working?
Right.
Are there any, signs or signals that our servitor is actually doing its thing?
That's a great question, and that's precisely where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. The mystery of servitors continues. Okay, so we're back. And I think the big question on everyone's mind is, how do we know if our servitors are actually working?
Yeah, that's the big question.
I mean, is it like waiting for a package? Do you just constantly refresh the tracking info? Is it here yet? Is it doing its thing?
It's not quite that straightforward.
Okay.
The source emphasizes that recognizing the effects of servitor work really requires a subtle shift in perspective.
Okay.
It's not about these dramatic in-your-face manifestations. It's more about looking for these nuanced patterns and synchronicities that align with your intentions.
Okay, so less about magical fireworks and more about just noticing these subtle shifts and opportunities that kind of align with our goals.
Exactly.
If we set a servitor to help us find a job, are we going to just suddenly get a dream job offer? Or is it going to be more about finding unexpected job leads or feeling more confident in networking situations?
Yeah, they suggest that they often work behind the scenes,
Okay.
subtly influencing events and circumstances to bring about that desired outcome.
That's such a great image.
It's like having this dedicated team working tirelessly behind the curtain
Yeah.
to make your goals a reality.
But how do we know if those positive shifts are actually the result of our servitor work and not just everyday coincidences?
That's where careful observation and intuition come into play.
Okay.
The source creator recommends keeping a detailed journal
Oh, okay.
to track your experiences, noting any events or opportunities that seem to align with your servitor's purpose.
So it's like being a magical detective,
Yeah.
looking for those clues and connecting the dots.
Exactly. And as you become more attuned to those patterns, your intuition naturally strengthens.
Okay.
and it makes it easier to discern the subtle hand of your servitor at work.
But what if I'm just noticing what I want to see?
Mm-hmm.
Like confirmation bias and all that.
That's a valid concern, and the source creator addresses that directly.
Okay.
They encourage a healthy dose of skepticism,
Right.
but they also emphasize the importance of trusting your own experiences.
Okay.
Finding that balance between critical thinking and an openness to the possibilities.
Right. Keeping our heads in the clouds, but our feet firmly planted on the ground.
Exactly.
But what if we're doing all that and we're still not seeing results?
Mm-hmm.
What if our servitors just like slacking off on the job?
They offer some helpful troubleshooting tips for those situations.
Okay, good.
First, go back to the servitor's purpose.
Okay.
And make sure it's clearly defined.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes vague or conflicting intentions can create confusion and hinder progress.
Like giving your magical assistant like unclear instructions.
Exactly.
They're just wandering around the astral plane,
Right.
scratching their head, being like, what am I supposed to be
Exactly.
doing?
They also suggest reassessing the servitor's powers.
Okay.
Do they have the necessary skills and resources to actually accomplish the task?
So double check the instructions, make sure our magical assistant has the right tools for the job.
Right, and if not,
Yeah.
it might be time for an upgrade or some additional training in that astral workshop.
Okay, cool.
They also emphasize the power of direct communication.
Oh, interesting.
Talk to your servitor, express your desires, offer guidance.
Right.
Remember, this is meant to be a collaborative partnership.
So even though they're not sentient beings,
Right.
they can still respond to our energy and intention.
That seems to be the case.
Interesting.
The source creator believes that maintaining that open line of communication, both during the creation
Right.
and throughout the servitor's, employment,
Mm-hmm.
can significantly enhance their effectiveness.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing how much we can learn from these magical practices, even if we don't consider ourselves to be like witches or wizards.
These esoteric traditions offer so much insight into human psychology,
Yeah,
the power of intention, the potential of our subconscious minds.
absolutely. And, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of servitors, I just want to leave our listeners with one final thought. What if the most potent magic lies not in summoning external forces, but in mastering our own inner landscapes, in harnessing that boundless potential that already exists within us? Something to ponder as we all continue on our own journeys of self-discovery. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the universe.